Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for waiting. As you know, government has time and time reiterated the point that we will not tolerate any obfuscation of any of the rules, in particular pertaining to procurement, pertaining to the procurement of services, both in infrastructure and other areas. And we have a zero tolerance for that. A number of the organizations that government does fund, we are carrying out a lot of background checks in respect of, for example, the awarding of contracts in terms of good governance issues. One such one has come to our attention, which was picked up by the FRA management. As you know, that is announced in the budget, we have a program of carrying out village and rural street lighting throughout Viti Levu, which will also commence in Vanua Levu soon. We also have another contract of renewing street lighting in urban and peri-urban areas. Now, there were two contracts that were given out to Prime Fiji Limited. Prime Fiji, as you know, at the moment holds another contract, which is general maintenance of existing street lighting. And as part of, normally when a contract is awarded, there's a performance bond that needs to be paid by the successful applicant, and that is successful winner of the tender. So one of the village street lighting works that is worth about $2.2 million was awarded to Prime. They're expected to pay about $222,000 in a performance bond. And another street light renewals of about $3.5 million, and they're expected to pay $351,000 approximately as performance bond. And normally the performance bond comes from a bank, a licensed bank. In Fiji's case, in this particular case, it is going to come from Westpac, who are the bankers of Prime Fiji Limited. Subsequently, it was discovered in the email that was sent there saying, well, this completes the documentation. And what was discovered was that the bonds themselves were not necessarily prima facie proper bonds. They were actually fraudulent bonds. So I'll get the CEO of FRA to actually talk about that and give you more details regarding that. And then we make some comments later. I expect a comment from one of the members of the FRA board. Thank you.
When we receive bonds from contractors who have been awarded contracts, we go through a series of checks on these. These contracts had actually been financed, were to be funded through ADB financing, so there was an extra layer of checking in there as well. So we go through a due diligence period in which we check the authenticity of the bonds, and we found in this case that they raised suspicions. And this was pretty much the very first hurdle in the process that we picked this up. And as a consequence, we raised the issue with Westpac Bank, and they questioned for us the authenticity of the bonds, and apparently they were fraudulent. So we went through a normal process of following up, informing the board, and doing our full investigations. We cancelled the awards of those two contracts, and we informed the ADB as the financing body, and we have an ongoing investigation. In addition, we've also passed on a report to FICAC for this. So the point is here for us is that we do have the controls in place, and these kind of cases will not get past those controls. The controls are very demanding, and they have to produce the authentic original certificates of bond. And if they haven't produced those, then we will not be able to execute the contract.
Thank you.
Just on behalf of the FRA board, we just like to ensure the government that obviously we are taking all necessary steps to ensure that it doesn't happen again. We are currently investigating some overpayment issues regarding the same company, Prime Fiji, and we'll be appointing some external auditors to ensure that this overpayment issue has been dealt with as well. As far as Prime Fiji goes, they got an existing contract currently with FRA. Yeah. So we are actually putting the contract on hold till further notice. We'll see what the outcome is pending the investigation, and the FRA board will make a decision on that as well. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I mean, from our perspective, it is quite worrisome that you have this company that supposedly has Australian roots. They originally came from Australia, and they've now registered a Fijian company that really had the audacity to think that they could pass off a bond, a performance bond, in such a fashion, and they would not get picked up. So it is of great concern to us, and one of the reasons why we're also highlighting this is, as the acting CEO has said, that this matter was reported to FICAC. It was reported yesterday. We look forward to FICAC carrying out a very thorough and expeditious investigation in this to get a quick resolution. Our message, of course, is to all would-be suppliers to governments, people who wish to provide services, whether through infrastructure or provision of supplies, that we will ensure that none of this type of behavior actually goes unpunished, or at least, at the very least, unreported. We cannot sweep these sorts of things under the carpet, nor do we expect anybody to do so. We have also, in this issue, as we've discussed a few minutes ago, we found that some of the accounting firms sometimes act for opposite parties at the same time. That is also problematic for us in terms of the very least, the ethical practice of that. And we have asked FRA board to ensure that that does not happen. But the strong message also to other existing contractors, please do not do this. If you do this, you do not have any room to get any opportunity to work with the government, nor do you have any room to operate in Fiji. We are working very hard and diligently to provide services. As you know, that this village street lighting program is a very exciting project for us, and also for all the villages that have been identified in various homes along the highways, where people will, when they get off at night at their bus stops, there will be lighting there. When you drive through the villages or drive through areas where there's a lot of housing, for example, in Korovuto, just outside of Nandi town, all these areas have been identified. We see the Denny's supermarket. We want people to be able to walk freely from their homes to shops, etc. We want people to get off the buses, people who work in the hotels. We want people to stop in the villages at night so they can carry out some form of commerce. They can sell. They sell corn, boiled corn, food, whatever it is. It creates commerce. And that's the objective of it, and to uplift the standard of living. And it is very disappointing when you have contractors who think that they can get away with such behavior. We want to expedite these projects. We're very keen to do so. It brings about some real change to people's everyday lives. Notwithstanding this setback, we hope that the FRA board will very quickly call for tenders again on these projects, so we can get these facilities up and running for ordinary Fijians. And also, we've discussed with the FRA that, notwithstanding the fact that these bonds were specific to these two contracts, they need to look at the existing contracts by Prime Fiji, because it does cast a shadow of doubt over their integrity to operate as a company in Fiji, and we should be completely intolerant of such behavior. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is in a nutshell to highlight to you, and also to send a very strong message to all the other contractors. So thank you for that. Any other questions?
When will the final decision be made regarding the other contracts that Prime Fiji has with FRA?
That will be discussed at the board meeting. I think that is scheduled for next week. And then and obviously there will be another investigation going on. Will be conducted, to determine some overpayment issues regarding the same company, Prime Fiji. So by next week we should know what will be the status of the existing contracts. So the board will make a determination on that once we get some reports by the external auditors.
They must be binded by legal by operating that. There should be some guidelines.
Sure.
And then they were recruited to do this.
Yep.
But if they have disobeyed, what is the likely punishment or what? How you gonna tackle that?
Obviously, we'll need to look in the contracts, the existing contracts, and obviously we'll be guided by our legal advisors as well, by our lawyers, what sort of action we need to take. But obviously, that contract aside, that will be sort of determined in the next couple of weeks, I guess.
How was the first instance the contractors were given? Are they tender or something? How?
Of course, they are.
There is a proper tender
So
process, yeah.
the Prime Fiji won the tender
Correct.
for that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about any legal ramifications, you have to look at there are two aspects to it. One of them, of course, is the contractual obligation that exists within the contract that you sign, and there are certain obligations and there are certain duties by both parties or both parties. But then, of course, there can be a criminal element to it too. If there's any fraud involved, that is separate to the contract per se. That could, of course, you can report that matter to FICAC. In this case, it's been reported to FICAC or police, whoever is the relevant agency.
But
So
you said
there are
it's
two
expatriates. There are expatriates in there?
Prime Fiji does have some expatriates, yes.
So legally they will be here for the, or they will be going back to the country, or how? They are banded back, that should be here. They should be here.
I don't understand your question.
I mean, like, if the investigation is going, will they be leaving their shores?
It's up to the investigating body. FICAC is an independent body, so is, for example, the police. If a complaint is lodged with them, they will carry out whatever they believe is necessary to ensure that the investigation is complete.
What's the overpaid amount? Is there any amount they were overpaid? Or?
No, we actually will be going through that in detail.
We're undertaking a forensic audit of invoices at the moment, and we don't have a figure for that yet. But it's enough to make us concerned to call that audit.
Was the matter raised at the appropriate time? I mean, given that they had already started work and the flags were raised only recently, I understand. Are the checks and balances adequate, would you say, or is there a need to go back and relook at some of the procedures that FRA has in place?
They hadn't started work. The contract had been, the letter of award had been sent out, but the contract hadn't been executed. So the work hadn't started and the contract wasn't actually up and running at that point.
I think we were talking about the overpayment.
Sorry, you're referring to the overpayment.
Overpayment.
That's on the existing contract, yes.
For the other two contracts, no payments were made.
No,
Village street lighting.
No, but for the contracts that have been overpaid,
Yes.
it was paid out. So do you need to go back and relook at some of your procedures maybe?
No, we have a security bond on those contracts. So we've got effectively money in the bank for any that we can claw back if there's against that overpayment. In addition, we're almost always holding at least 1 month's payment because it takes that long to process the payment, to check the claims and so on. So they're interim payment certificates, and we're always covered by sufficient money either through the bond, through retentions, or through the payment that's due to cover these kind of events.
Do you believe, because usually these things take there's collusion involved, do you believe that there may be somebody within FRA who may have facilitated these overpayments? Is that also scope of under investigation?
No, I don't believe so. I believe that that there were just aspects of the payments and the invoices that were overlooked in the checking process, and we will obviously be investigating as to how that came through and how we need to change the checking process to cover that. But as I say, at any point we're always covered by sufficient funds. We did pick this up. It was found out, and the controls are in place to find these things. It took a little bit longer to find that I'm comfortable with, but in the end it was found.
So do you believe there's local contractors who can do this work?
There is one of the 3 contracts that we're talking about has been won by a company called EPC, Engineer, Procure and Construct, and they're a Fiji company. And they submitted a perfectly valid
The whole project is how many millions of dollars? Or
There's not a whole project per se. They're obviously in different tranches. So, for example, the one set of village street lighting works, the one that Rory spoke about in relation to Prime, that was worth about $2.2 million. That's one project. And that's covering a number of villages in rural areas between Suva and Latoka. And then you have streetlight renewals, which is worth about 3.5, and that's sort of urban, peri-urban areas. The Fijian company that Rory spoke about is also doing rural street lighting, and that's mainly in the Western Division. And that's a package. So you give smaller packages. You can't exactly do, sometimes in these sorts of things, very big packages. And also the other point is that if you do very big packages, in particular in projects like this, it then reduces the ability of local companies to also apply. So if you have smaller packages, you can actually, the local companies will have the capacity to absorb that kind of capital investment. So you build the capacity, and that's what we've been trying to do. So when you have smaller packages, and if it makes economic sense for us, you do that. So then you have locals who can then have the capacity to do it, they build the expertise, and maybe then the next time if a local company gets it, they can do bigger projects. That's how it works.
What's the standard of work that you require? Because in the past I've spoken to the previous CEO regarding some roadworks that have been done, not up to standard. Definitely the contractors have done the work and the roads open up again within a few months. What is the monitoring process in place? He had said that there were systems in place to ensure that does not happen, and that contractors are also held accountable for that.
Correct. It's not a good thing that damage occurs to a road that's been repaired in a short period of time. It shouldn't, but occasionally it does. And when it does happen, the contractor is obliged to go back and to make that repair again at their own cost.
From government side, we have raised it with the board. Obviously, now with the new standards being introduced, with the consultants being involved, from government's perspective, we think that there is a ability to sharpen the pencil in some of those areas, that there should be less of an occurrence of failures immediately after some rehabilitation. And that's what we're talking to the board about directly, that perhaps there needs to be some improvement, not perhaps, but there needs to be improvement in some of the consultants who are overseeing it, some of the people who are designing it, and of course in terms of the capacity within FRA. This is why, as announced in the budget last year, for this year's budget, we have increased the funding for FRA in terms of their ability to hire more personnel, to build more capacity in-house. Then you have those very checks and balances. And that's very critical. And we also appreciate the fact that if you do have a stretch of road that's going to be rehabilitated, you don't want it breaking up after 3-4 weeks, because apart from the fact that it's not just a good look, there's not very good public perception. And even though in those instances, as Rory has highlighted, the contractors are obliged to go back and redo it, not at the cost of FRA, but at their own cost. So that's the sort of, I suppose, the comfort that he has. But from our perspective, it's not a good look to have that happening in the first place. So this is why we are very keen to ensure that the board works. And maybe, Sanjay, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, our current staffing level FRA at the moment is roughly about 45.
Yep.
Yeah, 45. So we are sort of gearing up towards the end of the year and having a staff number close to about 80. So obviously FRA is currently under-resourced at the moment, but we're trying to bring a lot of functions from outsourcing, a lot of work to all the external consultants, and bring the administration and the management into FRA totally. So our current model at the moment is all the consulting work is outsourced, like design, project management, contracting, everything is outsourced. But because when we have a budget of 500 million, we need to have in-house capacity to manage those projects as well. So that's what FRA has done over the last few months, have put advertisements out, to get more technicians, more engineers, more professionals, into FRA. So we can start managing those
You may
functions.
save money too.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Pay more for consultant.
Absolutely correct, yeah. So that's the whole intention, and obviously this is a transition period. Currently one of our major consultants is NWH, who are basically our primary advisors, and obviously their workload from next year will be reduced because a lot of functions will be coming into FRA. So that's the whole intention at the moment, to sort of build FRA's capacity, you know. So it might reach to about 80-85 by end of this year.
Just going back to the two contracts, which I understand have now been suspended, how soon would you like to see a new contractor come in and begin work?
What has happened is obviously this all the tenders that come to FRA, it's an open public type of scenario where all the tender prices are known by the contractors. It's an open tender system. Now what's going to happen is obviously we'll have to re-tender. We cannot give it to the second guy because he already knows his, you know, who won the tender. So obviously it won't be fair. Probably be a month, but we'll immediately get into that because the tender documents are already there. We just have to re-advertise and basically get the tenders in and re-evaluate. So we'll try and do it as soon as possible. Obviously this has delayed the projects, both projects. So we'll try and get that out as soon as possible.
Will there be any other specific stringent rules for the new contractors?
I think the rules are always been there.
But no additional, I mean like
No,
just
I don't
because of
believe
this-
there's any additional will be imposed. Like what Rory said, basically all these things just got picked up from day one. As soon as these bonds came in, it got picked up. So the systems are in place, the procedures are in place to ensure that there's, you know, these kind of things don't happen. Generally, it doesn't happen. They don't happen just like that. It got picked up. Yeah, so I don't think so we need to enforce any or put any additional stringent measures.
Just coming back to your question, as Sanjay says, we're looking to get those tenders out as soon as possible. In fact, even the day after we first realised what was going to happen, we already started preparing for that process and ensuring that we had a process set out to get those tenders out again, because we appreciate the importance of that these projects are done. So we're trying to bring the timeline down as short as possible.
Okay.
So while we have you here, the issue with regards to the Fiji Times article about the civil service reforms and what was published, I understand you put out a statement to clarify that there are no such plans by the government for phasing out or retirement and what have you. But what exactly is the plan in terms of manpower in the civil service?
We've already announced the plans.
And do you have anything to say about the article that was published by the Times?
Well, you know, we were very concerned, obviously, with the front page of the Fiji Times. We immediately spoke to the chairman of the committee, and he said he had not made those comments. We then said, well, we have to provide clarification. We said then we need to listen to the tapes of the committee proceedings. I think it had gone on for about an hour and a half. At no stage in the committee recordings did the chairman say any of those comments attributed to him in the Fiji Times. He did also mention that he spoke to the reporter Nasik Swami afterwards, but he had not mentioned any of what was reported in the Fiji Times. The Department of Information got in touch with Fiji Times, who claimed that he had said it and that they were going to send a transcript of the recording that they had with him. We have not to date received a transcript of those recordings. We in fact requested a recording of the recording, but we still yet to get that. But they still seem to be sticking to their guns, but if he had said it, they should have produced it. We believe so. But you know, I mean, this is the unfortunate thing about Fiji Times, that they tend to sensationalize many of these. And in fact, we have found, this is not the first time, that the Fiji Times has conflated, Fiji Times has exaggerated issues that have been made, comments have been made by members of the government or people in the committee. So it is very unfortunate that Fiji Times done it, and I want people who are watching your program to know that Fiji Times is in the habit of doing this.
As Minister for Civil Service, do you maybe see a need to take this up with MIDA?
We're going to get still all the information and see what needs to be done. But as we issued a statement out yesterday, and I'm sure all of you received it, that there is no such thing as claimed in the Fiji Times article. People still have their jobs. Nobody should reapply for the jobs. Of course, when contracts end and people apply or reapply, but no person with an existing contract or existing tenure will need to reapply for any of the positions.
Minister, just in relation to the permanent secretary issue about permanent secretary for information and communications, you and Perrin, you were just here for about 2 months. There's some comments being made that it was because of performance. He just came in for 2 months. Can you just clarify as Minister why he's gone just after 2 months of service with the PSC as permanent secretary?
His employer is the PSC. The Public Service Commission has already issued a statement. I don't wish to make any further comment.
You as Minister were not involved in any discussions about his performance?
I think the comment by the chairman has already been made, and that's what we need to stick to, because the contracting parties are the PSC and the permanent secretary.
So the
Yeah, I just
PSC
want to
has
ask
a
a question on
robust system and procedure in place for identifying candidates and having the interview process, and then coming up with candidates and in the end hiring permanent secretaries. But for this to have happened, was there some sort of oversight, or do we need to go back and maybe relook at how we go about the process of hiring permanent secretaries?
I'm sure your CEO or CEOs in your companies hire people, and sometimes they don't actually live till the end of the probation period. So not literally, but don't see their contracts till the end of the probation period. It depends on the individual case. It doesn't mean you need to rejig the entire system. That boils down to the individuals who are contracting the employment contract with the employer. So I mean, I think it's a bit far-fetched to say let's rejig the entire system. It boils down to the individuals who are performing in those particular positions, and like I said, the chairman has issued a statement.